She was clinging to a stranger's arm in a back hallway that smelled like dishwater and expensive cologne, and she was not the kind of woman who clung to things. Patricia Adeyemi had built everything she owned with her bare hands. 3 Michelin stars. 6 years in a city that didn't want her. A restaurant that made food critics write things like transcendent and devastating, and I don't have the vocabulary for this. She had survived being underpaid, overlooked, talked over, and told in 4 different languages that she didn't belong in Busan's culinary scene. She had never once grabbed a stranger's arm and begged. She was doing it now. Her hand was locked around the sleeve of a man she knew only by Thursday and by order: whiskey neat, grilled fish no sauce, rice, green tea at the end, and her hand was shaking and they both knew it and she could not make herself let go. "I know this is insane," she said. Her voice was level. Her hand was not. "I know you don't know me. I know you owe me absolutely nothing." The man hadn't moved. Hadn't pulled away. Hadn't said a single word. He stood in the particular stillness of someone who is always the most dangerous person in any room and stopped needing to prove it years ago. "I need a husband," Patricia said, to this stranger, in this hallway, at midnight. "Legally married. In 72 hours. Or they take my mother's land and everything I've spent 8 years building disappears by Friday night." The words landed in the empty hallway like something thrown off a bridge. She heard herself. A black woman in a South Korean restaurant corridor at midnight, clinging to a customer's sleeve, begging. After every door she'd kicked down. After every person who'd looked at her and seen everything except what she'd actually built. She let go of his arm. Straightened. 1 breath. 2. Wiped her face with the back of her hand, the only concession to the fact that her eyes were burning. "I'm sorry," she said. "Forget I said that. I'll figure it out." She turned to leave. "Tell me the specifics." His voice stopped her. Quiet. Not kind, precise. The voice of a man who had just heard a problem and decided, in under 3 seconds, that it was worth solving. She turned back slowly. "The clause, the collateral, the timeline," he said. "All of it." Patricia looked at him. This man. This particular, still, watchful man who had eaten in her restaurant for 19 months without ever asking for anything. Whose name her staff didn't say out loud. Who tipped 40% and never made anyone uncomfortable and sat in private dining room 3 like the room had been built specifically to contain him. Something in his voice, not warmth, not pity, just the complete and total absence of condescension, made her tell him everything. And that was how Patricia Adeyemi, executive chef, 3 Michelin stars, 6 years of impossible achievement in a city that had tried to break her, ended up married to the man who controlled Busan's criminal underworld before the sun came up on a Wednesday morning. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. If this opening already has your heart doing something uncomfortable, you're exactly where this story needs you. Subscribe to the channel right now, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment telling us you're here for Patricia's story, because what happens in the next 72 hours is going to make this hallway look like the easy part. Now, let's go back to where it actually started. Patricia had read the contract 4 times before she signed it. She always read everything 4 times. It was the habit of a woman who had learned, expensively, that the details were where people buried the weapons. 18 months of negotiation with the Kang Corporation for the Horndy flagship location, her own restaurant, her name on the building, the thing she had been working toward since she arrived in Busan with $3,000 and a stubbornness her mother called a gift and her first 3 employers called a liability. She signed at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Poured herself a glass of wine. Called her mother. "Mama, I did it." Ngozi Adeyemi, 61, Lagos, currently managing a persistent cough that Patricia was not allowed to worry about, went completely silent for 4 seconds. Then she made a sound that Patricia had only heard twice before in her life, once when Patricia got her first kitchen position, once when the first Michelin star came through. "My daughter," her mother said, and that was all she said, and it was enough. Patricia went home and slept better than she had in months. Her lawyer called at 9 a.m. "Patricia, I need you to sit down." She didn't sit down. She stood in her kitchen in her chef's whites, already prepping for the day, phone pressed to her ear, and listened to him read Clause 14, subsection C, paragraph 3 of page 47 out loud. The lead contractor must be legally married at the time of the gala unveiling. She didn't interrupt. She listened to the whole thing. Asked him to read it again. He did. That clause wasn't there when I reviewed the contract, she said. I know. Someone swapped that page. Patricia, I know, but your signature is. What's the exposure? He told her. Contract void if the clause wasn't satisfied by the Busan International Film Festival Gala, 72 hours away. Void triggered the collateral forfeiture on page 31. The collateral she had signed over as standard security against contractor default. Her mother's land in Lagos. Find me a loophole, she said. I've been looking since 6 a.m. Find me a husband then. You have until morning. She hung up. Put the phone face down on the prep counter. Picked up her knife. Started breaking down the fish for afternoon service because she had a 12-course gala menu to finalize and 72 hours to do the impossible, and she would not let them see her break in her own kitchen. She didn't break until 11 p.m. The dinner service ended. The staff went home. Patricia stayed behind with the prep schedule, reviewing it for the 4th time, finding nothing wrong with the food and no comfort in its correctness because the menu was never the problem. She took her lawyer's call in the back hallway. He had nothing new. She thanked him, ended the call, and stood in the corridor outside private dining room 3 doing the math one final time because the math had to be wrong somewhere. It wasn't. 72 hours. Her mother's land. The gala she was catering with her own hands. 400 guests. The most powerful people in South Korea expecting 12 courses of her food. And she was single, completely, deliberately, professionally single, because she had made that choice years ago and now that choice was being used to destroy everything she'd built. She pressed her back against the wall. I need a husband, she said to the empty hallway. To nobody. To the universe running the cruelest possible joke. I need to be legally married in 72 hours or they take my mother's land. Flat voice. Hollow. The voice of someone who has done the math 9 times and keeps getting the same answer. She didn't hear the door to private dining room 3 open. Kwon Jinwoo had been sitting in that room for 2 hours. He came every Thursday wrong night, but he'd had a meeting run late and the meeting had been about the single most pressing problem in his life, which was this. 3 weeks ago, the traditional council, the 7 elder figures who legitimized territorial claims in Busan's underworld, had told him to demonstrate stability or cede the southern port territory. Their definition of stability, rooted in thinking older than Jinwoo's operation, a settled man. A household. Someone who had something to lose. Jinwoo controlled Busan's port supply lines. He had run his operation for 11 years with a precision that made everyone around him move carefully. He was not theatrical about his power. He was not sentimental about much of anything. He had spent 11 years removing every soft target from his life, every person who could be used against him, every attachment that could become a lever in someone else's hands. And now the council wanted proof he'd built something beyond business. He had been methodically searching for a solution. Every woman in his circle was either connected to his enemies or known to the council as a political plant. He needed someone outside his world. Someone real. Someone whose life the council's investigators would examine and find entirely, unimpeachably genuine. He had not found her yet. He'd thought about it every Thursday for 3 weeks, sitting in private dining room 3 of Jeonbuk, watching Patricia Adeyemi run her restaurant from a room she didn't know he watched her from. He'd been eating here for 19 months. He knew how she moved through the dining floor on the rare occasions she left the kitchen. He knew how her staff oriented toward her without being called. He knew the sound of her laugh, the real one, not the professional one she used with difficult guests, because it carried all the way to his private room. He had told himself, for 19 months, that this was appreciation. That he was a man who noticed exceptional things and Patricia was exceptional and that was the beginning and end of it. He was lying to himself and he knew it and he had been doing it anyway because men like him didn't get to have things like her. Then he heard her voice through the barely open door. He stood up before he had decided to. Crossed the room before he had a strategy. Stepped into the hallway before his brain caught up with his body for the first time in 11 years. and found her pressed against the wall in her chef's whites, phone in one hand, the other pressed flat against the wall, saying she needed a husband by Friday or they would take her mother's land. He watched her for 3 seconds. She didn't see him. Then she said, "I have nobody to call. 8 years in this city and I have nobody to call." And something in her voice, not the desperation, but the specific quality of a strong person reaching the absolute end of their rope, made him take 1 step forward. She looked up. Saw him. For a moment they just looked at each other. The man from private dining room 3, whose actual name she'd been instructed by her own staff never to say out loud. The chef who had served him 19 months of careful, perfect meals through other people's hands. She should have composed herself. Patricia Adeyemi did not fall apart in front of customers. She crossed the hallway in 3 steps and grabbed his arm. Her hand locked around the sleeve of his jacket, not the way a frightened person clings, but the way a drowning woman grabs a fixed point. Deliberate. Desperate. Completely aware of what she was doing and doing it anyway because her mother's land was worth more than her pride. "I know this is insane," she said. "I know you don't know me." She told him everything. The clause, the collateral, the 72 hours, the gala she was catering with her own hands. The mother in Lagos on land that was memory and home. The 8 years of building something in a city that had tried to reject her at every turn. And then she heard herself. Let go of his arm. Told him to forget it. Turned away. "Tell me the specifics," he said. She turned back. She told him. He listened without interrupting. No expression. No flinching. When she finished, he was quiet for exactly 45 seconds. She counted them. Then, "I have a proposal." She stared at him. "You're going to tell me you can solve this. I'm going to tell you we can solve it together. There's a difference." He laid it out clean. Legal marriage, processed tonight, by his lawyer, documented and airtight. She gets the clause satisfied, her mother's land protected, the contract honored. He gets something he needs, and he would explain it fully and honestly before she signed anything. "What do you get?" Patricia asked. "I need to appear married to the right kind of person." "You are the right kind of person." "Why?" "Because you're real. Because you built something legitimate in this city from nothing. Because the people I need to convince are very good at detecting performance and you don't perform anything." Patricia looked at him steadily. "Who are you?" "Actually, I'll answer that completely before you sign." "You have my word." "Your word," she repeated. "Yes. I want everything in writing. Every detail. Exit terms. All of it." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite approval. Something more precise than approval. "My lawyer will draft it tonight. You read every word. Ask every question. Nothing gets signed until you're satisfied." Patricia held his gaze. This man who ate alone in private rooms and tipped like money meant nothing and whose name made her staff go quiet. This man who had just offered her the only solution she had in under 5 minutes. "One more thing," she said. "Name it." "Honesty. When we're alone, no performance, no management. If something affects me, you tell me. If I ask you a direct question, you answer it." He held her gaze. "Agreed. Then let's go." They were in his lawyer's office by midnight. Patricia read every word of the contract. All 34 pages. Asked 14 questions. Negotiated 3 clauses. Signed at 3 a.m. Before she signed, she looked at him across the table. "Now, who are you?" "Actually," he told her. No softening. No reframing. "I control Busan's port supply lines. The operation exists entirely outside legal channels. I inherited it from my father at 24. I have run it for 11 years. You're a criminal. I operate in spaces the law doesn't reach. Whether that makes me a criminal depends on your definition. That's not comforting. It's not meant to be comforting. You asked who I am. That's who I am." Patricia absorbed this. "Am I in danger?" "Not from me. From others." A pause. "There are people who oppose my operation. Marrying me places you in their field of vision. I won't lie to you about that. Tell me the worst case. He told her. Patricia sat with it for a long moment. Then she picked up the pen and signed. The marriage was filed electronically. Legal by morning. Patricia went home, slept for 2 hours, and was back in her kitchen by 6 a.m. Her sous chef Minute Jun, 28, loyal to a fault, asked why she looked like she hadn't slept. I got married last night, Patricia said, and started breaking down fish. Minute Jun laughed for a full 30 seconds. Then he looked at her face. Chef, why aren't you laughing? Because I'm serious. Pass me the filleting knife. Minute Jun passed her the knife and then walked directly into the prep counter. Patricia noted this was fair. At 9 a.m., her phone rang. The number was the Kang Corporation's hospitality division. Kang Seoyun's voice was controlled, but her words were not. I know about the marriage. I need to talk to you. Not over the phone. Today. Patricia kept her voice level. Come to the restaurant at 3. She hung up and thought about what she already knew about Kang Seoyun, 29, ran the corporation's hospitality division, was the direct contact on the restaurant deal, and had been the last person alone with the contract before Patricia signed it. The person who swapped page 47. Seoyun arrived at 3 p.m. looking like someone who had made a decision and wasn't sure yet whether it was brave or suicidal. Patricia took one look at her and said, "Not here. My car." In the car, Seoyun said, "My father didn't insert that clause to stop your restaurant." I know, Patricia said. He inserted it to see what Jinwoo would do. Seoyun went very still. He's been watching Jinwoo watch my restaurant for months, Patricia continued. He needed Jinwoo to expose himself. I was the mechanism. She looked at Seoyun directly. The question is why you're in my car telling me this. Seoyun's hands were doing something complicated in her lap. Because he used my division. My work. The relationships I spent years building with people like you who trusted the Kang Corporation's hospitality arm because I made it trustworthy. Her jaw tightened. I've been documenting his illegal port manipulation for 2 years. Shell companies, falsified manifests, bribed officials. I built the record to protect myself when it eventually collapsed. A pause. I'm done waiting for it to collapse on its own. Patricia was quiet. What are you asking? I need corroboration. Someone who was inside his operation during the setup. Someone who can testify to what they observed. Seoyun met her eyes. You've been in his venue kitchen for the last 2 days. You see everything. You're a chef, you notice what everyone else filters out. And if this goes wrong, everything goes wrong. For me. Patricia looked at her for a long moment. Why should I trust you? You shouldn't, Seoyun said simply. Not yet. But ask yourself, what does a woman who built something good gain from burning it down, except the ability to sleep at night? Patricia went to Jinwoo's apartment that evening and told him everything. He listened without expression. When she said Soo-hyun's name, his younger brother, clean, legitimate, an architecture student in Seoul, something moved through his face so quickly she almost missed it. Almost. This was always the play, Jinwoo said quietly. He was standing at the window with his back to her. Everything else was set up. The clause, the marriage, the council pressure. He was always going to use Soo-hyun. Jinwoo. He turned. Is Seoyun's offer real? Patricia asked. Her documentation, is it enough? If it's what she says it is, yes. Then I need to make a decision. Patricia stood up. I'm already inside his venue. I've been watching for 48 hours and I have enough to corroborate everything she has. But I need to know if you'll let me do this or if you're going to spend the next 10 minutes telling me it's too dangerous. Jinwoo looked at her. I can handle dangerous, Patricia said. I have been handling dangerous since I moved to this city alone at 26 with almost nothing. What I cannot handle is sitting in your kitchen while the man who tried to take my mother's land runs an operation 2 miles away and gets away with it. A long silence. Then Jinwoo said, do you trust her? Not the logic. Your gut. Patricia thought about Seoyun's hands in the car. The specific quality of her anger. Not fear of consequences. The fury of someone who built something good and watched it get weaponized. Yes, she said. Then we move tonight. A pause. One condition. Name it. You tell me everything you observe. Every conversation, every movement, every detail. You don't act on it yourself. You give it to me. Patricia raised an eyebrow. You want me to be your intelligence asset. I want you to be my wife, he said, who happens to have access to my enemy's kitchen. It was the first time he'd said my wife without it sounding like a legal term. Neither of them acknowledged this. Patricia went to see Park Chulsu that night with Seo-yun. The eldest council member, 79, eyes that had seen everything twice. They sat across from him in a room that smelled like old wood and older money and laid everything on the table. Seo-yun's 2 years of documentation. Patricia's 48 hours of operational observation, delivered with a chef's precision, time-stamped, specific, reproducible. Park Chulsu listened to all of it. Asked 3 questions. Went quiet for a very long time. Then he said, the gala proceeds as planned. Nothing changes visibly. But the Friday meeting will not produce the outcome Kang expects. He looked at Patricia with those ancient, calibrated eyes. You testified against a dangerous man. In this world, that is not done lightly. My mother's land is in Lagos, Patricia said. I'm not from this world. I have different calculations. Something moved through Park Chulsu's expression that might, in a different man, have been called admiration. He told them to go home and get some sleep. In the car, Seo-yun let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped for 2 years. Is it strange that I feel lighter? No, Patricia said. That's what it feels like when you put down something you shouldn't have been carrying. A pause. How do you know? Seo-yun asked. Patricia looked out the window at Busan. Because I've been carrying things that weren't mine since I was 22. I'm just learning. She went back to Jinwoo's apartment at midnight and found him in the kitchen. Not cooking, he didn't cook, or hadn't before this week, but standing at the counter with a glass of whiskey, looking at the city through the window with the expression of a man who has been sitting alone with something heavy. It's done, he asked. Park Chulsu has everything. He nodded. Set down the whiskey. You should sleep. The gala is in 18 hours. I know. She didn't move toward her room. She stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at him. Can I ask you something? That was the agreement. What happens to Soo-hyun if this goes wrong? The real answer. Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. He loses everything I built to protect him. The clean life, the school, the distance from this world. Kang has been holding his exposure as insurance. If I don't cede the ports, Soo-hyun becomes the pressure point. How long have you known? Since Seo-yun told you. Which means since you told me. He looked at her. Which means for about 4 hours I've been sitting with the knowledge that my brother is in danger and the only move available requires me to trust 2 women I've known for a combined total of 72 hours. Patricia walked to the counter. Sat down across from him. How's that going? He looked at her. Something in his expression shifted very slightly, the way a very controlled thing shifts when it's reached a limit. Worse than expected. Because you're scared. I don't. Jinwoo. She said it quietly. We agreed on honesty. A long pause. The city hummed below them. Somewhere a ship moved through the port, invisible and massive, carrying things that didn't appear on any manifest. Yes, he said. I'm scared. Me too. Patricia reached across the counter and put her hand over his. Not romantic, something more fundamental than that. The specific contact of one person telling another person, I see you and I'm not leaving. But we already moved. We can't move. So we sleep, and tomorrow I cook the best 12 courses of my life, and we trust that Park Chulsu is as sharp as his eyes suggest. Jinwoo looked down at her hand on his. Then he looked at her. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who would take the deal and keep their distance. I tried that, Patricia said. The distance kept closing anyway. She went to bed. Jinwoo stayed in the kitchen for a long time, looking at the place where her hand had been, and did not examine too carefully what that meant. The next morning Patricia was in the Kang Corporation's venue kitchen by 7 a.m. Her team of 8 moved through the space like a surgical unit. 12 courses. The most important service of her career, cooked in her enemy's kitchen, for the people trying to dismantle her husband's empire, while the gala's invisible war played out somewhere above her head. She cooked like it was the only thing in the world. Because in the kitchen, it was. In the kitchen she was just a chef, and the food was just food, and every dish was a sentence, and together they were an argument, and the argument was, I belong here, I built this, and you cannot take it. Minute Jun worked beside her without asking a single question, which was the most loyal thing he'd ever done. At one point, around hour 4, he leaned over and said quietly, Chef. There's a man who's been to the kitchen entrance 3 times claiming to be checking on the ventilation system. He's my husband, Patricia said, without looking up from her mise en place. Minute Jun absorbed this. The one from last week. The one from Tuesday. The one who. Minute Jun. Yes, chef. Sauce. He made the sauce. Jinwoo appeared at the kitchen entrance at the end of the 4th course. Officially visiting his wife. Actually delivering intelligence in a 60-second window. Kang's security perimeter doubled in the last hour, he said quietly. He knows something moved. How many courses left? Patricia said. 8. Then we have time. She plated without looking up. How's Soo-hyun? Unaware. Secure for now. Go back to the ballroom. You're supposed to be a settled, stable power. Stop lurking in kitchens. He almost smiled. Almost. It was becoming a regular almost. Your fish course is extraordinary. I know. Go. He went. Course 7. Jinwoo at the kitchen entrance again. The council members he invited to the private meeting are arriving. Park Chulsu sent 2 of his own people with them. Patricia felt something unknot in her chest. Good. You all right? Ask me after course 12. Course 9. The meeting started. Patricia plated course 9 with completely steady hands. Minute Jun watched her do it and said nothing, and later he would tell people that that was the moment he understood what 3 Michelin stars actually meant, not the food, the person. Course 11. Jinwoo came to the kitchen and didn't say anything operational. He just stood in the doorway and looked at her. Working, focused, completely in control of the one space in this building that belonged entirely to her. The kitchen that wasn't hers and somehow, completely, was. He looked at her the way he'd been carefully not looking for 19 months. How are you? He said. Ask me after course 12. I'm asking now. Patricia set down her tweezers. Looked at him for exactly 3 seconds. I'm terrified and I'm fine, and I've been both for 48 hours, and I'll process it after I plate one more course. She picked the tweezers back up. Go. Patricia. Jinwoo. When this is over. After course 12, she said. Whatever it is, after course 12. He went. Course 12. Patricia plated it herself. Each element placed with the precision of someone who has spent their entire adult life learning to make feeling into something edible. 12 dishes. An argument, a biography, a proof of existence. She handed the last plate to the service team. Listened to it leave the kitchen. Stood in the sudden quiet. Minute Jun appeared beside her. Chef. Yeah. That was the best service we've ever run. Yeah. I have approximately 300 questions. Tomorrow. Is your husband actually? Tomorrow, Minute Jun. He subsided. She sat on a prep stool for the first time in 9 hours and breathed. This is the moment we need you to feel everything this woman just did. She cooked 12 courses while running an intelligence operation for an underworld territorial dispute. She held every single thing together with her bare hands. If Patricia's story has your chest tight right now, drop a comment, tell us which moment broke you. Like the video so more people find this story. Subscribe if you haven't. We'll wait. Now. Upstairs, the private meeting was collapsing. Kang Dae-won had spent 8 years building the infrastructure to destroy Kwon Jin-woo. He had cultivated the Port Authority officials, the council members, the financial backers. He had been patient and methodical and utterly certain. He had not accounted for his own daughter. Seo-yun's documentation was presented by Park Chul-soo's representatives to Kang's backers, men who had invested in the Kang Corporation's legitimacy and now sat looking at 2 years of evidence that the legitimacy was a surface over something rotten. They made the calculation that all financial men make when the numbers change. They chose survival over loyalty. The territorial transfer failed to materialize. Kang went quiet. Then he made his last move. He called the team positioned near Suhyun in Seoul. Jinwoo's phone vibrated at 11:15 p.m. He read the message. His face did nothing, absolutely nothing, in the way that the face of someone with 11 years of practice does nothing. He excused himself from the table where he had been performing settled, legitimate power for 4 hours, walked to the venue terrace, and made 3 calls in under 4 minutes. The team near Suhyun dispersed before they reached him. Jinwoo stood on the terrace looking out at Busan. The port invisible in the dark. The city he had controlled for 11 years, spread out below him, indifferent to the specific weight he had been carrying since he was 24 years old. He heard footsteps. Patricia. Still in her chef's whites. Smelling of the kitchen, stock and smoke and 9 hours of everything she had. She came to stand beside him without asking if she was welcome. She had, he was realizing, stopped asking if she was welcome about 48 hours ago. She just arrived. She just stayed. He kept waiting for it to feel like an intrusion and it kept feeling like the opposite. Is he safe? She asked. Yes. She let out a breath. They stood looking at the city. It's over, she said. The immediate part. The rest takes time. Seo-yun. She'll be protected. The council owes her that. A pause. So do I. Patricia nodded. The city hummed below them. A ship moved somewhere in the dark, carrying things that didn't appear on any manifest, taxed by a man who was standing on a terrace next to his wife of 72 hours and doing something he hadn't done in 11 years. Feeling something he didn't have a word for yet. Patricia, he said. Yes. I need to tell you something. You can tell me anything. That was the agreement. He turned to look at her. This woman who had grabbed his arm in a hallway 2 days ago and changed everything. Who had read every word of a contract at 3 a.m. and negotiated 3 clauses and demanded honesty like it was a non-negotiable term. Who had cooked 12 courses in an enemy's kitchen while running his intelligence operation and come out the other side looking like she'd done a moderately difficult dinner service. I would have found another solution for the council problem, he said. I had time. Options. But I heard you in that hallway and I moved before my strategy caught up with me for the first time in 11 years. He held her gaze. It wasn't tactical. I need you to know that. Patricia was quiet for a moment. The city moved below them. I know, she said. You know. I knew in the lawyer's office when you agreed to the honesty clause without hesitating. She looked at him. That told me you'd been waiting for someone to ask for that. For a long time. Something in his face did something complicated. Not breaking, more like a very carefully maintained wall developing, very precisely, a door. I don't know how to do this, he said. And it was clearly not a sentence he said often. Possibly ever. Any of this. I've spent 11 years making sure no one gets close enough to matter. And then you showed up crying in a hallway. I was not crying, Patricia said. And somehow in 72 hours you've gotten closer than anyone has in my entire adult life. The city breathed below them. The gala continued inside, oblivious and glittering, and out here on the terrace 2 people stood in the quiet aftermath of something enormous and tried to find vocabulary for what had accumulated between them. What happens now? Patricia asked. I don't know, Jinwoo said. I don't usually not know. How does it feel? He considered this. Uncomfortable. Welcome to the rest of us, Patricia said. He looked at her. Then he said, I started noticing you 19 months ago. The 3rd Thursday I came to Jeonbuk. You laughed at something the sous chef said and the sound carried all the way to private dining room 3. I remember thinking I'd never heard anything that alive. Patricia blinked. That was before. Before any of this. Yes. He held her gaze. I told myself for 19 months that it was appreciation. That I was someone who noticed exceptional things and you were exceptional and that was all it was. A pause. I was lying to myself. Patricia stared at him. You've been watching me for 19 months, she said slowly. Yes. From private dining room 3. Yes. While I thought you were just a very good tipper. I am a very good tipper. Jinwoo. Yes. That is, she stopped. Looked at him. Looked at the city. Looked back at him. Something moved across her face, complicated and warm and cautious, and something else underneath all of that. Something that had been building since a midnight conversation at a kitchen counter about why she cooked the way she did, and a man who had answered with a precision that told her he had been paying attention long before she knew it. I'm not ready to call this what it is yet, she said carefully. Neither am I. But I'm also not ready for it to be over. Neither am I. They stood on the terrace for a long time. Not touching. Not needing to. Just present, in the particular way of two people who have been through something together and come out the other side and are standing in the quiet aftermath trying to understand what they're standing in. The 72 hours expired somewhere over the city, unannounced. The next morning was a Saturday with nothing on fire. No deadline. No trap. Number 12 course service in an enemy's kitchen. Patricia made breakfast in Jinwoo's kitchen at 7 a.m. because the kitchen was where she thought and she had a great deal to think about. Jinwoo appeared at 7:30. Looked at the food. Sat down. They ate in silence for a while. Then Jinwoo said, "My brother is coming to Busan next week." Patricia looked up. "He wants to meet you," Jinwoo said, with the specific tone of someone delivering information that means considerably more than its surface content. You told him about me. He found out through the council announcement. He called and asked approximately 40 questions I didn't answer and said he'd be here Saturday. A pause. He's going to like you more than he likes me. Is that a problem? Everyone likes everyone more than they like me. I've learned to manage. Patricia looked at him. This precise, controlled, carefully contained man who was telling her his brother was coming to meet her and pretending the vulnerability of that sentence didn't exist. Jinwoo, she said. Yes. I'm staying. He went very still. I'm not leaving, she said. I know the contract is technically satisfied. I know you could make a very efficient argument for why this has served its purpose and we should proceed to the agreed exit terms. I know that's probably the argument you've been rehearsing since 6 a.m. She held his gaze. I'm telling you I don't want the exit terms. I want this. She gestured between them. Whatever this is. With no contract and no deadline and no council requirement. Just this. Jinwoo looked at her for a long moment. You're sure, he said. I'm a woman who read a 34-page contract at 3 a.m. before I signed anything, Patricia said. When I say yes to something, I mean yes. Something happened in Jinwoo's expression then. Not the almost smile. Not the careful professional mask. Something underneath both of those things. Something that looked, if you knew what to look for, like a man who had spent 11 years building walls and had just, very deliberately, opened a door. Then stay, he said. Quiet. Certain. Like it was the most natural sentence in the world. Soo-hyun arrived the following Saturday and was immediately, catastrophically charmed by Patricia. He shook her hand, ate 3 portions of whatever she cooked that evening, told Jinwoo in Korean that he was an idiot for taking 19 months. Jinwoo translated this faithfully, per the honesty agreement, and spent 4 hours asking Patricia about her food with the specific enthusiasm of someone who has been eating his brother's professionally catered but emotionally empty dinners for years. She's the best thing that's happened to you, Soo-hyun told Jinwoo in the kitchen while Patricia was on the phone with her mother. I know, Jinwoo said. Soo-hyun blinked. I expected you to argue. I know that too, Jinwoo said, and went to stand in the kitchen doorway to wait for Patricia to finish her call. The 30-day council review passed without incident. Park Chul-soo delivered the verdict in person, unprecedented, a fact Jinwoo noted without explanation and Patricia understood immediately. The old man looked at both of them and said, "What you built in 72 hours, most people don't build in 72 years." After he left, Patricia and Jinwoo sat in the kitchen in the particular quiet that follows a verdict. So, Patricia said. So, Jinwoo said. It's over. Officially. Officially. Which means, Patricia said, we are now married with no external requirement driving it for the first time since Tuesday night in a hallway. Accurate. How does that feel? Jinwoo thought about this honestly. The way he had learned was still learning to think about things. Like something I built on purpose, he said. Which is new. Patricia looked at him. You're going to be insufferable when you get good at this, aren't you? Probably, he said. Is that a problem? Ask me in a year, she said. He almost smiled. And then he actually smiled. Not the almost, the real thing, complete and unhurried and alive in a way that made Patricia understand immediately what Minutjun had meant when he said the kitchen seemed different lately. That smile was a person coming home. 3 months later, Patricia opened the Horndy flagship on a Friday evening. Her name on the building. The culmination of 8 years of building something in a city that had tried, consistently and creatively, to reject her. The kitchen ran like a military operation because it always ran like a military operation, and Minutjun, finally promoted, finally given the title he'd earned at a ceremony that Patricia handled by handing him the new uniform and saying don't make it weird and then making it extremely weird by crying in the walk-in freezer for 4 minutes, held the pass with the specific competence of someone who had been ready for this responsibility for 2 years. Jinwoo sat at a table in the main restaurant. Not private dining room 3. A visible table, present and accounted for, not hidden in a private room pretending he was only here for the food. Soo-hyun sat beside him. 2 empty chairs were filled, 20 minutes after service began, by Ngozi Adeyemi and Patricia's younger sister, who had flown from Lagos for the opening and were currently doing something to Jinwoo that he was handling with remarkable composure, which was, loudly and comprehensively approving of him. Ngozi reached across the table and patted his hand. She was always going to do something impossible, she said. I just didn't know she'd find someone worth doing it with. Jinwoo, who had controlled Busan's criminal underworld for 11 years without once losing his composure, said, thank you, in a voice that was approximately 30% less controlled than usual. Soo-hyun noticed this. Said nothing. Stored it to use later. Patricia came out of the kitchen after service to find her family at her husband's table in her restaurant. Her mother stood up and held her at arm's length for a long moment, the way she had in the arrivals hall months ago. Looking. You look different, Ngozi said. Different how? Like you put something down. Patricia thought about 72 hours. About a hallway and a stranger's arm and a math problem that turned out to have an answer nobody expected. About 12 courses in an enemy's kitchen and a terrace overlooking the city and a man who had been watching her for 19 months and was now watching her from a table that wasn't private anymore. Yeah, she said. I did. Across the restaurant, Jinwoo caught her eye. Held it. That thing in his expression that had been almost for months and was now, consistently, completely itself. She'd needed a husband in 72 hours. She'd found considerably more than that. And if Patricia's story did something to you, if you felt that hallway, if you held your breath through course 12, if that terrace scene broke something open in your chest, then this is the moment. Subscribe to the channel right now. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear a story about a woman who grabbed life by the sleeve in a back hallway and refused to let go. Drop a comment and tell us, what was the moment that got you? Was it the hallway? The kitchen? The terrace? The smile? Because here's the thing about Patricia and Jinwoo. She came to Busan to survive. To work double shifts and send money home and make it through each day in a city that kept testing whether she was serious about staying. He came to private dining room 3 every Thursday for 19 months and told himself he was only there for the food. They were both lying to themselves. And one midnight in a hallway that smelled like dishwater and expensive cologne, the lies ran out. She grabbed his arm because she had nothing left to lose. She found, in the place where there was nothing left, the only thing worth keeping. That's not a fairy tale. That's not a contract. That's 2 people choosing each other in the specific, ordinary, extraordinary way that means something on a Tuesday, on a terrace, over course 12, in a kitchen at 1 a.m., every day, on purpose. 72 hours that became a life. And somewhere in Busan right now, in an apartment full of photographs and plants and the smell of whatever Patricia is experimenting with in the kitchen, Jinwoo is eating breakfast and looking at the seat across from him, the one that used to be empty, that was empty for 11 years, that is now so thoroughly occupied that the empty mornings feel like a held breath and counting the hours. She always comes back. He always waits. That's the whole story.